press the red subscribe button before you watch this video. No, you watching the video, you clicked on the video, press the red subscribe button immediately, now, for a cookie. Please, just press it, please. It will help out a lot, and I'll continue making videos.
With the NBA Finals quickly approaching its finale, the offseason is right around the corner and we'll finally be able to fully shift our focus onto next season. Every team has a different plan for how they will go about this process, but the one thing that each and every one of them has in common is that they want to improve, whether it be for right now or for the future. The topic of today's video is a continuation of the topic of yesterday's video, where we will be going through every NBA team, identifying the one player that is most likely to be traded this offseason. Last video covered the teams in the Eastern Conference, so obviously this video will be going through the teams in the Western Conference. So if you missed last video, make sure to go check that out after you watch this one. Before we start though, it turns out about 61% of you watching right now aren't even subscribed to the channel, so please, if you enjoy the content, consider hitting the subscribe button, as not only does it help out a ton, but I'd also very much appreciate it. Now with that being said, let's begin. Going in alphabetical order, we'll be starting with the Dallas Mavericks, and the player they are most likely to trade this offseason is Kristaps Porzingis. Porzingis has found himself in the midst of trade rumors from the moment the Mavericks were eliminated from the playoffs, and on top of that, there have also been reports of him and Luka Doncic not exactly getting along very well. He was brought in to be an all-star caliber number 2 option alongside Luka, and while he's been solid in the regular seasons, he's come up short once again in the playoffs, playing subpar basketball. The Mavericks need someone who can legitimately take some of the offensive load off of Luka's shoulders, and I'm not sure Porzingis is that guy. So expect the Mavericks to shop him around, attempting to find that guy, or at the very least free themselves up some cap space to prepare to sign that guy in free agency down the line. Up next is the Denver Nuggets, and the player they're most likely to trade is Bol Bol. Ever since he entered the league, he's been one of the more intriguing prospects in the game, but despite that, we really haven't seen all that much from him. It's really starting to feel like the Nuggets have entered a timeline that doesn't fit Bol at all, because they are ready to fully contend at the highest level, and they don't seem to have the patience to bring Bol along as a member of the rotation to develop him because of how raw he still is. I can definitely see a rebuilding team having interest in him and all of his tantalizing potential, so that would probably be best for both sides for a deal to get done like that. Next up is the Golden State Warriors, and the player they're most likely to trade this offseason is James Wiseman. The Warriors have 2 lottery picks in this year's draft, and they used their pick last year to select James Wiseman, but with Klay Thompson coming back and the team going all out to return to the playoffs after a 2-year drought, there has been plenty of chatter about the Warriors packaging Wiseman and those 2 picks to try to get a player ready to elevate the team to contender status right now, because they don't have the patience to waste any more of Steph Curry's prime years. Wiseman had a fairly up and down rookie season, but still has so much potential and talent, and will absolutely draw tons of attention by teams on the trade market, so this is another situation where it would probably be best for both sides to get a deal done. Next up is the Houston Rockets, and the player they are most likely to trade this summer is Eric Gordon. Gordon is owed a lot of money on his remaining contract, and not only is he steadily declining, but he's also not a player that fits the timeline of the Rockets anymore. He's served very well as a 6th-man offensive spark on some of their best teams over the years, but now the Rockets are rebuilding, focusing on developing their youth, and Gordon is someone who can still help a team try to win. His contract won't exactly make it easy to move him, but no contract is impossible to move, as we've seen countless times recently, so I still think he'll be on the move somewhere. Next up is the Los Angeles Clippers, and the player they're most likely to trade is Rajon Rondo. Reggie Jackson just balled out in the playoffs as he enters free agency this year, and the Clippers will want to bring him back. Jackson will also be expecting a hefty payday after the way he played for them in the playoffs, so to do this, the Clippers will need to shed some salary, and Rondo's $8 million contract for next year seems like a good place to start. Rondo has been instrumental to countless playoff teams over the years, but he is definitely getting up there in age and slowing down now. now, and that was evident by how he was in and out of the rotation for the team down the stretch of the season. He's only on a one-year deal remaining, so other teams would definitely be interested in his leadership and impact for 1 year in big moments, but the Clippers have other priorities at the moment. Next up is the Los Angeles Lakers, and the player they're most likely to trade is Kyle Kuzma. The Lakers don't exactly have many candidates for a topic like this, so of the guys available to pick, Kuzma is the obvious selection. He's shown potential in the past to be an impactful scorer, but has sacrificed a lot for the sake of the team and its success since LeBron James' arrival. He's been vocal about how he believes he can be much better in a bigger role on a team, and if that's how he feels, the Lakers very well may grant him that wish to try to acquire players more ready to play the role that Kuzma is currently in. Up next is the Memphis Grizzlies, and the player they're most likely to trade is Kyle Anderson. Grizzlies are one of the few teams without a glaringly bad contract or a piece that sticks out needing to be moved, but for the sake of the video, if I have to pick somebody, Anderson becomes that guy by default. The Grizzlies have Justice Winslow getting back to full strength and are definitely interested in discovering what he can give them. They drafted several promising forwards and wings already, and him being on a team-friendly contract would be tempting for other teams to try to acquire him for. Up next is the Minnesota Timberwolves, and the player they are most likely to trade is rookie Rubio. The Wolves have to make some big moves this offseason to try to get themselves back on track towards playoff contention, and Rubio is not only an aging veteran who just had his worst season as a pro, but he's also on a huge contract holding them back from maximizing their cap space to improve. His contract does expire after next season though, so he won't be impossible to trade, but for the sake of the Timberwolves and the spot they're currently in, he definitely has to be off the books. Next up is the New Orleans Pelicans, and the player they're most likely to trade is Steven Adams. Adams has been a rock in the middle for teams for years now, and still provides strength in the interior and rebounding, but his fit alongside the Pelicans' franchise player Zion Williamson is very questionable, and they need to start building a team best suited to Zion's strengths. Adams clogs the paint for a guy like Zion who absolutely dominates inside, and the team's net rating plummeted when those two shared the court for obvious reasons, and it's just not a pairing that works out very well. Adams may be slightly overpaid, but there should still be teams with interest in him because of all the good things that he does. New Orleans just isn't the place for him. Up next is the Oklahoma City Thunder, and the player they're most likely to trade is Kemba Walker. The Thunder already made a big trade when they acquired Kemba a few weeks ago, but ever since that deal got done, the vibe has been that Kemba is not there to stay. We all know how much General Manager Sam Presti loves his draft picks and will make any deal that can add to that treasure chest, so with Kemba Walker still being able to score the ball well, and the fact that he really doesn't fit the timeline of the Thunder's rebuild, it seems like it's just a matter of time before Kemba Walker is once again on the move. Up next is the Phoenix Suns, and the player they're most likely to move in a trade is Jalen Smith. The Suns were another team without many realistic candidates for this topic, so with their cap space maxed and most of their core set after a stellar season they just had, Smith is the choice here as a rookie who barely played at all this season and is probably a few seasons away from contributing consistently for a team trying to win. He'll have value because of his youth and his shooting ability as a big man, but the Suns will want to continue playing at the highest level next year too, so Smith could be used to bring in a player that can help them do that. Up next is the Portland Trail Blazers, and the player they're most likely to trade is Damian Lillard. Lillard's been in the headlines for a while now because his future in Portland, for the first time ever, is very much cloudy. If drastic changes are not made in Portland, there is actually a decent chance he does request a trade, and once that happens, the Blazers will have everybody hitting their line trying to acquire him. Lillard is one of the best and most explosive players in the league right now, and it would definitely take a monster package to make the Blazers budge, but teams would be very willing to give that up to bring in his services. Next up is the Sacramento Kings, and the player they're most likely to trade is Buddy Hield. After emerging as a 20-point scorer and an absolute lights-out shooter 2 seasons ago, his production has declined each of the last 2 seasons, and his shooting hasn't been able to make up for the other parts of his game that he struggles with. The Kings just had the worst defense in the NBA last year, and Hield himself is one of the worst perimeter defenders out there, so if they want to address that, then Hield would be the player they use in a trade to do so. His shooting will obviously be intriguing to plenty of teams, because that's a skill that will always be wanted, but the Kings need to be able to get stops in order for their up-tempo, fast-paced offense to be effective. Next up is the San Antonio Spurs, and the player they're most likely to trade is Derek White. The Spurs have a ton of cap space this summer to spend in free agency, so a trade isn't even that necessary, but there have been reports that Derek White could be moved around the time of the draft, and obviously if a deal gets done, he seems to be the most likely guy to be moved. He's been steadily improving every year, and he's been in the league providing very well-balanced offensive sparks, along with solid defensive impact. He just isn't great at any one thing. His contract is reasonable, he provides positive impact, and he is steadily improving still, so I guess it's not surprising teams are showing interest in him at the moment. And finally, the last team on this list is the Utah Jazz, and the player they're most likely to trade is Derek Favors. Coming off of a season where they finished as the #1 seed and have the most of their core guys returning, they probably won't be making many drastic moves, but Favors is a bit of a big contract at $10 million that could be trimmed to help aid their flexibility. He's more of a conventional big man who can score efficiently around the rim, but doesn't necessarily do a lot of the things defensively that modern big men need to do, and that can hurt in the minutes that Rudy Gobert is not on the floor. And with that being said, that's all I have for you today. Make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and comment down below who you think will be traded this summer.